Hello there, very good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst team. I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this afternoon. Fire at Keravalapitia garbage dump brought under control. Security units on alert for a possibility of another fire. Parliamentarians continue to receive COVID-19 vaccines. Vaccination for the public to take place today as well. Sand mining racket exposed near the Randeniya Reserve in Dambulla. Rover lands on Mars to discover possible signs of life. Now those stories in detail. A fire that erupted at the Keravalapitia garbage dump last evening was doused at around 8 a.m. today.
A fire had erupted at the 4-acre garbage dump in Keravalapitia that contains polythene and plastics. Triforce's personnel, police officers and officials attached to the fire service department took steps to douse the fire. Our correspondent reported that water had been sprayed from 3 directions in a bid to bring the blaze under control. Accordingly, the fire at one section of the garbage dump had been doused at around 11 p.m. yesterday. The cause for the fire is yet to be ascertained.
To bring you a comprehensive update on the situation there right now, Mariam Gunabija joins from Keravalapitia.
Thank you, Martin. I am currently at the garbage disposal facility in Keravalapitia, and as you know, there was a fire that erupted here last evening. Fire trucks from the Colombo Municipal Council were also here in an attempt to douse the fire. However, one side of the fire in the garbage disposal facility was able to be doused, and the fire on the other side continued until around 9 o'clock earlier this morning. Now it is reported that there is a standby team of security forces in the site. The authorities had mentioned that there is a high chance of the fire erupting again due to the heat and wind conditions in the area. Stay tuned for more updates. I am Mariam Gunavijaya reporting for the Newsfirst team from the garbage disposal facility in Keravalapitia.
Meanwhile, a fire that erupted at the Gardmore Reserve in Muskelia last afternoon has been brought under control.
A fire had erupted at the Gardmore estate in Muskelia last afternoon. Approximately 10 acres of land had been damaged in the blaze. Military personnel attached to the 581st Brigade of the Sri Lanka Army engaged in a strenuous operation to douse the fire. Officials suspect that the fire had been caused by an act of arson. Accordingly, further investigations are being carried out into the incident.
Sri Lanka recorded 8 more deaths due to COVID-19 yesterday. The deceased were residents of Dematagoda, Colombo 8, Meegoda, Ridhimaliyadda, Dekatana, Colombo 10, Keselwatta and Wattala. Official figures indicate that 501 COVID-19 cases were identified yesterday, raising the total infections in the country to 78,420. Meanwhile, 647 individuals recovered from the infection yesterday. Accordingly, the total recoveries in the country stand at 71,823. Meanwhile, police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana said that 16 people were arrested within the last 24 hours for violating the quarantine regulations.
We have arrested 16 people within the last 24 hours for violating the quarantine laws of the country. So far, we have arrested 3,180 people for not wearing face masks and for not maintaining social distancing. And we will continue to enforce the quarantine regulations. Especially in the Western Province, we're continuing our surveillance to monitor the government and private sectors, whether they are following the quarantine regulations. Right now, there are around 107,000 people who are directed to self-quarantine at their homes by the health authorities, out of which 65,000 are from the Gampaha district.
කරන ලද පිරිස 1,17,000ක් පමණ වෙනවා. මේ අයගෙන් වැඩිම පිරිසක් සිටින්නේ ගම්පහ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ. ඒ පිරිස 65,000කට ආසන්නයි.
Parliamentarians continue to receive the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured in India under the brand name Covishield today as well.
The Covishield vaccines were administered among parliamentarians at the Army Hospital in Narayanpeta. Accordingly, parliamentarians and ministers were seen arriving at the hospital today to receive the COVID-19 jab. Our correspondent reported that parliamentarians Lakshman Kiriyalla and D.V. Chanaka were among the lawmakers who received the vaccine today.
Minister of Water Supply Vasudeva Nanayakara states that the vaccination program which is underway can be completed within 3 months. He made the statement at an event held in Anuradhapura yesterday.
We
have already brought the vaccines which are needed to vaccinate everyone in the country. Members of the parliament will receive it first. The reason for this is because they are the ones who interact the most with the society. The MPs got the vaccine after it was given to the frontline workers of the health sector and the military forces. We will continue the program. First, it will be given to the public from the red zones of the Western Province, especially in the Colombo district. Within the next 3 months, we will be able to finish vaccinating every citizen of the country. A group including the president of the Movement for the Duty of the Public, Venerable Jamburuwela Chandraratna Thero, visited Randhiniya in Dambulla yesterday.
A group including Venerable Jamburuwela Chandraratna Thero visited Dambulla to inspect a sand mining operation taking place in the vicinity of the Randhiniya river.
මෙතන එහා පැත්තේ රක්ෂිතේ නම් තියෙන රක්ෂිතේ ඉඳලා මීටර් 100ක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ පේරක කලාපේ. එතකොට පේරක කලාපේ කාටවත් පස් කපන්න බෑනේ. පේරක කලාපේ කියන්නේ රක්ෂිතේ ආරක්ෂාවට හදලා තියෙන මීටර් 100ක් නේ. පස් කපන්න අවසරය දෙනවා තමන්ගේ ආයතනයට අවශ්‍ය ගාන.
They are allowing sand mining to take place by obtaining money. That paves the way for the commencement of a sand mining racket. They have violated the regulations. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau has listed the conditions on the permit. They have violated these conditions after obtaining a permit. An investigation has not been carried out into sand mining taking place in this area. There has been no follow-up either. If the law is not enforced by punishing the culprits and claiming compensation for the damaged land, then the people in this country would do the needful to provide redress to this situation. Approximately 2,000 acres of land at the Somavatiya National Forest Reserve are currently at threat amidst moves to hand over the land to external parties. The Surakimu Sri Lanka organization raised concerns on these moves during a media briefing today.
More than 2,000 acres of land was removed from the Somavatiya National Forest Reserve with the involvement of the Divisional Secretary of Madurigiriya. This was also done with the involvement of the Secretary at Vimalavira Disanayaka's State Ministry and also State Minister in charge of Provincial Councils and Local Government, Roshan Ranasinghe. Plans are underway to give away between 2,000 and 3,000 acres of land to external parties. They have demarcated boundaries for this purpose as well. This has been done on their whims and fancies without surveying the Somavatiya Reserve and gazetting the demarcation of these lands. The relevant process has not been followed in this instance. How can the Divisional Secretary demarcate boundaries on lands that are owned by the Department of Wildlife Conservation? How can the Wildlife Secretary permit the demarcation of these boundaries? Vimalavira Disanayaka and Roshan Ranasinghe had taken steps to distribute 8,000 acres of land in the Floodplains National Park. But following stiff objection raised by residents, the governor in the area and Roshan Ranasinghe pledged to give away lands from this reserve. They have promised to give away 3,000 acres of land.
මේ ඉඩම් දෙනවා කියලා පොරොන්දු දෙනවා. එහා පැත්තේ මැදිරිගිරියේ ඉඩම් දෙනවා කියලා මිනිස්සුන්ට අක්කර 3000ක් ඉඩම් දෙනවා කියලා මිනිස්සුන්ට පොරොන්දු දෙනවා.
Minister Vimal Veeravansa has said that new industries will not emerge if banks do not change their strategy of offering loans in the country.
A program was held in Tangol yesterday to recognize the most outstanding entrepreneur of the Southern Province for 2020. The event was organized by the Consulate General of India in Hambantota and the Southern Provincial Development Authority. Industries Minister Vimal Veeravansa and India's Consul General P.R. Dipin presided over the event. If we are to uplift the country's economy, the banks must change their policies. In countries like Japan, loans are offered to the people at low interest rates by simply considering the project proposal. There are no additional conditions. Our banks only focus on seizing the assets of the debtor and not to assist or uplift them. There are no banks with such an attitude in this country. In the recent past, we held discussions with the finance minister and banks. It was with much difficulty that we convinced them to offer working capital loans at a 4% interest rate.
Ranga Dias, an assistant professor of mechanical engineering at the University of Rochester, has been named in Time magazine's Next 100 list, published recently.
Ranga Dias has been identified amongst the 19 new innovators of the Times magazine's Next 100 list that recognizes 100 emerging leaders in the world. The assistant professor of mechanical engineering was included in the list for his innovation of a room temperature superconductor that can pave the way for future innovations. The Next 100 list of the Times magazine was released on the 17th of February.
From that, we bring to a close this edition of Lunchtime News on TV Bond. For details of these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First team, I'm Martin Satyanesan, along with producer Ravinder Jaikwadi. You have yourself a wonderful day.